We're going to get our online audience all set up. 54, that's good. And our in-person audience, thank you for making time to join us in person today. We have a little bit of a packed agenda, but mostly we want to save time for a conversation. We'll get to some online questions. We'll toggle back and forth between our folks here in the room, and want to leave a lot of time for your questions. If we don't have the answers, we're committed to following up when we do have the answers. And then we'll just get underway. Folks online, if you could chat your questions, we will hold everything until the end. And I'm going to go ahead and start introducing our team. I'm Cher Hovand. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for the Department of Labor and Employment. We have policy, operations, and communications team. Everybody's here for the family division today to support our town hall. Let's start with Tracy Marshall. She's our division director. Lydia is a policy manager. Josh, branch manager. Jessica, communications, and Evan, policy, and Oscar in the sidelines, they're creative directors. So thank you everyone for joining us. Just a few quick acknowledgements. Our partners of AO Valley Partnerships, Kay and Lauren, thank you so much for collaborating on this with us. Our friends at the Workforce Center, Mark and Carolyn, CHRA helped us put this together, and then our friends here at Colorado Mountain College for giving us the space and the wonderful location, donuts and water outside for in-person folks. It's a little prize for joining us today. And then I think what we're going to do, we're just going to get started. We do have a poll. So this is new to our town halls. By the way, this is 5 out of 15 town halls that we are holding throughout the state. We will share the deck out. We have an opportunity for you to complete a survey after the town hall. Tell us what worked, what didn't work, what content you would like to see that we didn't share with you. A lot of opportunities to engage with us. Before we get to the poll, I will just go over our agenda just quickly. If you recall, the paid family leave in Colorado was approved by Colorado voters. 57% of Colorado voters voted in favor of this program. We're now one of 11 states that has a paid family leave program. This was passed by Colorado voters in 2020. Most of what you will see today with regard to the rules and regs and the framework of the program is in law. So the department does not have a lot of discretion over some of the items that are in law, including it's a shared contribution, there's a local government opt-out, the premium rate, all of that, it was passed by voters in law. And so the department is now mandated with implementing this program. We have 4 regulatory divisions. This now marks the 5th for the Department of Labor and Employment. So if you interact with us with, let's say, Division of Unemployment Insurance, wage and hour law, workers' comp, those are all of our regulatory divisions, now adding family. We do try and streamline processes for employers so that if you're used to dealing with one division in a certain way, we would love to combine efforts with those regulatory divisions, but we also realize the systems, the processes, the requirements are all varied across our regulatory divisions. So real quick, what is family? We'll go over that, the timeline for implementation, when employees can use family, funding, premiums, private plans, rulemaking. So we do have our policy experts here to dig into some mechanics behind some of the rules. We're in the middle of benefits and private plans right now, so we'll get into that. You still have an opportunity to give us feedback for private plans, and we'll go over the timeline for that, and then local governments and questions. So real quick though, our new poll, we have folks already responding, thank you. So in the room, of the private employers in the room, how many of you will participate, do you think, in the paid leave program that the state will offer? Show of hands.
Opposed to a private plan?
Yes. So the first question is, will you participate in the state plan? The second question is, will you choose a private plan? Or do you not know? Okay. I will maybe ask you again at the end of the session and see if anything we've shared has moved the needle one way or the other. We just like to get a sense of who's in the room. And do we have any local government reps? Oh, okay, good. Any indication if you will opt out of paid family leave? Yes. Okay. Yeah, we're hearing that. So a lot of the questions we're getting in is you take a vote, and then whether the process is after you take the vote. We'll get into that. I get really excited about sharing information, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Marshall. Thank you for coming, and lots of time for questions at the end. So Tracy.
Thanks, Cher. All right, so I have notes mostly so that I don't forget to tell you anything that you are here to hear. So again, my name is Tracy Marshall. I'm honored to be serving as the Division Director for the new FAMLI program. And to echo Cher, thank you all so much for giving us some of your time today. So a quick overview. So FAMLI will provide paid leave for Colorado workers to take care of themselves and their loved ones during those certain life events that require them to be away from the workplace. The program will cover almost all workers in Colorado, including those who are self-employed or have multiple different employments. The FAMLI program is a social insurance program with both employers and employees making contributions to the fund that will then eventually pay out benefits. The premiums are set, as mentioned, by the statute to 0.9% of the employee's wage, with half of that being paid by the employer and half of that being paid by the employee. And that is the rate it is currently set at. We know that it will not ever exceed 1.2%, and that again is dictated to us in the statute. So here you can see a timeline, or you shortly will see a timeline. There we go, where you can see, what we're looking forward to in the months ahead. First up is going to be in Q4 of this year, which is when we will be launching our system for you to be able to register your company's decision. It may be that your company is a local government organization. You're choosing to opt in, you're choosing to opt out, you're choosing to take the option in between those two, which we'll talk about more later on. Or it may be that you are a private company and you're notifying the state of what your decision is regarding a private plan, or whether you're going to be going with the state's plan. Then on January 1st of 2023, we will have a full launch where we will start having the availability for wage reports to be uploaded. We will increase the activities that can be done in our benefits, in our premium system. And there'll be more functionality in the system at that time. Q1 of 2023, that's when you're going to find at the end of that quarter that your first wage reports are due to the state. And we will have mechanisms for you to upload those wage reports to us. Then in January of 2024, that's when individuals will be able to make claims to the FAMLI system and will start paying out benefits. So when can covered workers use FAMLI leave? So FAMLI is going to provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave for Colorado workers, as we mentioned, to take care of themselves or their loved ones. Those who are experiencing complications related to pregnancy or childbirth, they may be eligible to take up to 16 weeks, again, depending on their medical necessity. Covered workers will be able to apply for FAMLI leave for managing a health event, taking care of a new child, whether that's through birth or placement or adoption, making arrangements ahead of a military deployment for themselves or a family member, or to deal with the immediate needs following intimate partner violence or sexual assault. Those are all available leave options for people. So as you may be aware, FAMLI is a voter-approved initiative, just like Cher mentioned, that will be funded by both employers and employees. Employers that have 9 or fewer employees are not required to pay the employer's share of the premium. They'll only have to deduct and remit that 0.45% from their workers on a quarterly basis. Employers that have 10 or more employees will be sharing in the cost of the program by matching that 0.45% contribution. Employers may also, if they choose, contribute more on behalf of their employees. Employers may say, you know what, we'll cover the whole thing. Employees, there's going to be nothing out of pocket for you, and we'll take care of that 0.9%. That's certainly an option available for employers. Self-employed individuals may also voluntarily participate in the program, and they would also pay that 0.45%. if they down the road needed to utilize those benefits, they would receive the full benefit. It's not cut in half or anything like that for them. So the burning question for a lot of people was, will family premiums increase? And, you know, again, to reiterate, the initial premium rate, it was set by the statute at that 0.9%, and that's through the end of 2024. For 2025 and beyond, we do get to set the premium rate according to a formula based on the monetary value of the fund at that time. Family premiums will never go above that 1.2% that I mentioned. And we've actually seen demonstrated in other states that have already launched their paid family leave programs that they've been able to decrease their premiums and increase the amount of benefits that they were able to provide to individuals that needed to take the leave. So we do believe that the state program will be the most efficient and cost-effective option for employers to offer paid family leave for their organizations. But those employers that choose to offer paid family leave benefits through a private plan will also have the option to apply for an exemption. So I'm going to hand us over to Evan to talk about some policy points.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you all for being here. My name's Evan. I'm going to maybe not dive into the weeds, but at least crouch into them a little bit, and we can dive into the weeds deeper when we do some Q&A. So first, very briefly, I just want to point out that in an effort to make things as easy and familiar for employers as possible, we are going to update our premiums rules to make completely clear that what constitutes wages under family means the same thing as what constitutes wages under the unemployment insurance. And what's not wages under unemployment is not wages under family. We do have a list of payments on our website that includes what is and is not considered wages. There's a link in the slide deck, and for those of you here in the room, you can go to family.colorado.gov. In relation to wages, premiums are paid on wages only up to the federal Social Security wage cap. And so as that Social Security wage cap changes from year to year, so does the family premium wage cap. And so next, I want to talk about the method by which you count your employees to determine your employer size. And this is important, as Tracy had mentioned before, because employers with 10 or more employees have to provide that employer share. That's a match of the employee's contribution. Employers with 9 or fewer do not. And so when it comes to counting how many employees you have, the employer count is calculated once a year by counting the number of employees you had on your payroll during 20 or more calendar work weeks in the preceding calendar year. So for example, in 2023, employers will look back at their workforce over all of 2022, identify every employee that worked for them, and if that employee worked for them during 20 or more weeks, then they count toward the total head count. As far as determining whether or not someone worked for you, obviously, if they show up that week, that's easy. But also, you would have to count employees that are on paid or unpaid leave, whether that's sick or medical leave, leaves of absence, disciplinary suspension, whatever it is. If the employer expects the employee to return to active employment during that, then they are counted as being an employee during that week. Yeah, I certainly am. and that one always garners a few follow-ups, so I understand. So next, just briefly, we wanted to show you what family will look like for employees once it's up and running. This is a few ranges of what premium deductions and benefit payments will look like based on the employee's wages. When taking family leave, employees will receive up to 90% of their wages. That's based on a sliding scale. Obviously, the less you make, the higher and closer to 90 you are as far as a replacement rate. And then the more you make, the further and further you get from a 90% replacement rate. Benefits are capped at $1,100 per week. That is good through 2024. Starting in 2025 and afterward, benefits will equal 90% of the state average weekly wage. That's a figure that's published by the department annually. And then again, just a reminder that we do have that benefits calculator on our website that will help people get an idea of what sort of deductions to expect and what sort of benefit payments they are potentially looking at. Next, this is to provide some clarity on a slightly nuanced area, and it's to clarify the point that private employers can meet their obligations with a private plan, but that doesn't mean they're exempt from FAMLI. The only true opt-out available to the Colorado employer community is to local governments. And so employers can meet their obligations with a private plan that I'll go into a little bit more in detail here in a minute, that basically have to provide equal or greater benefits. There's a subset of private plans called self-insured private plans. We expect most private plans to be in the form of insurance policies offered by insurance carriers, but there is the option under the statute for employers to self-fund their own private plan. However, per the statute, if an employer chooses that option, not only do we still have to review and approve the plan for equivalency, but that employer also has to submit a surety bond to the state that sort of ensures their solvency and ability to pay benefits that come out of that plan. And then again, as I noted, local govs are the only ones that can truly opt out, and I will be talking more about that in detail briefly. But first, more about private plans. Right now, sort of the landscape with where we are in private plans, we do have rules in progress. We have a draft that's close to being ready to file with the Secretary of State to make it sort of formal, which would open up the public notice and comment section. We have been working with a few key stakeholders to sort of iron out a few details and to make this work for as many people as possible. All that's to say is that there will be plenty regarding private plans that will be subject to public comment, public discourse, and therefore subject to change because we're very receptive to the comments that we receive. I can tell you a good deal of detail about what the statute does cover, and that's effectively employers can offer a private plan and meet their FAMLI obligations, but the private plan has to offer all the same benefits and impose no additional conditions. So for example, in order to be approved, the private plan would have to offer the same number of weeks for benefits, which is generally capped at 12 per year, except that individuals experiencing a serious health condition related to pregnancy or childbirth complications can get an extra 4 weeks per year. The private plan has to offer at least the same level of wage replacement for each week of benefits. It can't impose any additional requirements or conditions. It can't authorize the employer to deduct any more from employees' paychecks than they would be allowed to under the statute. It has to cover all of the employer's employees through the duration of their employment, and it has to remain compliant with any additional requirements established by the FAMLI division. Now, as a result of having to develop private plan rules and get a private plan marketplace basically in place, we understand that that puts a bit of a crunch on employers who may want to shop around. It also puts a crunch on the insurance industry to develop the products for which they would do the shopping. So we've created a temporary procedure whereby all Colorado employers will be required to register with the FAMLI program and begin paying premiums in 2023. And then those employers who get an approved private plan in place with an effective date on or before January 1st, 2024, will receive from the division a refund of all the premiums that they paid. Next, I want to just sort of give an update on the rulemaking process in general. Right now, we are putting the finishing touches on our benefits and employer obligations draft rule. We already had a public hearing on that. A few days after the public hearing, the window for public notice and comment closed, and we expect to have that final version adopted in the coming days. Next up will be the filing of private plan rules, which will open up the public notice and comment for that set of rules. And then after that, we will schedule a public hearing for those rules and identify the closure of that period as well. And then after that, we have a few additional rounds of rules that we'll have to promulgate. We do have rules concerning the coordination of benefits that will go into more detail. The family programs interaction with, say, the FMLA or sick leave under the Healthy Families and Workplaces Act, the HIFWA Act under Colorado, workers' compensation, unemployment, short-term disability, employer-provided leave programs, you name it, we're going to try to touch on all of that and provide as much detail as possible in that forthcoming set of rules regarding coordination of benefits. And then after that, the statute does task us with a few more rounds of rules. We do have to promulgate some rules regarding reimbursing employers where they pay their employees in advance for family benefits. We'll do a few minor cleanup amendments to our currently in place premium and local government rules. We will do rules regarding complaints for retaliation, discrimination, interference with an employee's rights under the family program. And then, of course, some program integrity rules, which will address our procedures regarding fraud and abuse, collecting overpayments, et cetera. And then finally, we want to talk some about local governments. I think, as you all know, local governments have a few options available to them that are unique to the employer community. And basically, local governments have three options. The first option is to participate fully in family. And that would be just like everything you've heard so far, the government would collect contributions from their employees, depending on the size, they would match or they wouldn't have to match. And then they would have to submit premiums and wage reports to the division on a quarterly basis. The second option is to decline all participation in family. In order to do this, the local government has to publicly vote to do so. They have to notify the division of their vote to decline participation. That decision to decline participation is only good for 8 years. And so if they want to continue declining participation after 8 years of having already opted out, they have to re-vote to do so. And then employees of that local government have the option to voluntarily participate in family by opting in as individuals, and they would be able to remit on their own 0.45% of their wages and would have to do quarterly wage reporting on their own. And then the third option is to effectively decline employer participation. And what this would essentially mean is that the employer, while still technically opted out and not liable for any premiums, would provide administrative support to its employees who decide to opt in. And so that means the employer would facilitate those wage deductions for the employee. The employer would submit those premiums to the state for the employee, and the employer would submit the wage data as well. Just a quick note on math, as is everybody's favorite, I'm sure. But in talking to a few local governments, some were attracted to the family benefit as a potential replacement for some of the generous benefits that they were currently offering their employees. So by way of example, an employee who makes $50,000 a year, their share, 0.45% of their wages, would equal $225 a year. That's only $4.33 a week. And so the feedback we got from some employers was we weren't thinking about participating at all, but that's cheaper than what we are paying for our benefits right now. So keep in mind, perhaps purely along financial lines and nothing else, it may make sense to participate to some degree. Yeah, for $50,000 a year, the employee share is $4.33 a week, $225 a year. And in case anybody is interested, Tracy had mentioned the possibility under the statute that premiums could increase to 1.2% of wages. And so that would mean the employee share would be 0.6% of that. So under that circumstance, there is a bit of a bump, but it's not much. That same $50,000 a year employee would then pay $5.77 a week, or $300 a year. So in other words, that last cost that I identified is as expensive as it will get for that $50,000 a year employee in Colorado. All right, I don't know if I'm handing this back to Cher or Tracy to wrap up, but all right.
Thank you, Evan. We have quite a few questions online. We're going to get to one question in the room first, but before we get to the Q&A, links to all of our online resources. When Evan was speaking about the 3 local government options, option 3 is one that we can help you with some communication tools to your workforce. So local governments who do opt out, but perhaps their employees want to opt in, they're really registering like a self-insured person would do, like a gig worker, independent contractor. So break room posters, if folks have break rooms, local governments still do, I think, pay stub inserts, PDFs, anything that we can produce for you to communicate with your workers is what we'd like to do. We certainly don't expect you would be the intermediary and know all of the parameters and requirements and workflows within the system. So if there's something that you don't see now, it's likely in production. Again, after today's event, we'll send you a survey. We welcome your input on what would be useful for us to produce for you to help share with your workers. And then lastly, these are all of the ways to get in touch with us. Social media channels, our email box, and of course our website. The figures that Evan was sharing, we do have a premium calculator on our website at family.colorado.gov. And so with that, I think I want to go ahead and get to questions.